Hello, we're talking kitchen essentials today. Look, as someone who's been cooking on and off camera for over 20 years now, I have bought a lot of kitchen tools over the years. And if I'm being honest, a lot of them either end up being forgotten in the jar or given away. But there is this smaller set of kitchen tools that I find myself reaching for constantly. Like, these are the tools that have fundamentally changed the way I actually cook on an everyday basis. So today I'm going to talk a little bit about all 11 of them. You've probably honestly already seen them across my videos a lot at this point. These are the kinds of things where you buy it once and then you never have to think about it again. They last you forever. I'm going to link everything below in the description box if you're curious, but let's get into it. So this first group I'm calling the prep game changers. These are the tools that really help make the preparation process and the actual act of cooking a lot less chaotic. First up, we have these quarter sheet trays, which is my favorite kitchen tool ever. This is it. This is the one. I've been using these for over 4 years now, and I'm still reaching for these every single day. So clearly they have earned their place. If you've watched basically any cooking video on this channel, I feel like you would have seen these before. A lot of people think of these sheet trays as like a baking thing, but that is probably only like 10% of how I use these. These are my landing pads, my mise en place. So when I'm prepping, everything goes onto this little tray. Vegetables I've chopped, proteins I've seasoned, a little bowl of ingredients that I've measured out, they all just sit right in here. It just really helps keep the counter organized, gives everything a little home while you're cooking. I also like using them for resting utensils mid-cook, you know, to keep the counter from getting dirty. They do also fit in my beloved toaster oven, the Balmuda, so that is a huge win for me. Just for a tiny kitchen, it is perfect. The rack is optional, but I would also really recommend it. It just goes right on top and unlocks another level of use. This is especially great for roasting or, you know, letting things cool with that like airflow underneath. The only con is that they can't be dishwashed, but overall, I feel like that's a very small detail, which is why I have a whole stack of them. Next up are cutting boards. And I want to make a case for something very specific here: thickness. I think a lot of us just grab whatever cutting board is out there and don't think too much about it. I get it as somebody who also used to use thin plastic boards, but the difference a thick cutting board makes is actually kind of significant. A thick board is sturdy, it feels great, and more importantly, it is actually gentler on your knives, which is really important if you do want to keep your knife as sharp as possible. And honestly, it just feels much better to prep on, and I will say a larger surface area also just allows for much more flexibility, which if you cook a lot, you do need. So I have these two that I love. This one is made from EVA, which is a softer, more resilient material than plastic. I got this one at a local Japanese home goods store. But this is a thick wooden board that I just reach for when I want something that feels a little more solid, that has more surface area, and it also just, you know, looks beautiful on a counter. Okay, next thing, mixing bowls. I know this sounds like the most obvious thing in the world, but I have thoughts. I have had all sorts of mixing bowls forever, just different materials, different sizes. I use them constantly for just about everything. You know, mixing, baking, marinating, tossing salads, prepping ingredients, or just, you know, storing things in the fridge, which means having ones that actually work well and like are multi-purpose really pays off. So this set of glass bowls I've used for many years, but most recently, just last month actually, I upgraded to these stainless steel bowls. These are from Caraway and they come with these glass lids and I love them. I love that the stainless steel bowls are, you know, light and durable. Having matching lids is perfect for my purposes. I can just marinate something or make some cookie dough and just cover it and pop it in the fridge. But my point here isn't specifically to buy any of these specific bowls. It's more so that I feel like mixing bowls are something that you are going to be reaching for constantly. So if you find a set that you really like, it's worth the investment. I just kind of wish I did that even earlier. Moving on to section 2. These are the tools that genuinely surprised me. Like either I underestimated their purpose or I had them, you know, filed in my head for one specific use case only to find out they are so much more versatile than that. Starting with tongs and chopsticks. So these two I'm grouping together because I feel like they solve the same problem, which is precision. So tongs, I feel like A lot of us know it as a very specific grilling tool or, a fancy kitchen tool. And for a long time, I also thought that way. But then I actually started using them regularly and I realized how great these are for even just mundane things. Things like, taking hot bread out of the oven, of course, flipping steak in a pan, but it's also great for tossing salads, tossing cooked pasta, or even, grabbing something that's just too hot to touch. They are basically an extension of your hand, but better because heat doesn't bother them. And the control you get for all of these tasks versus like a spoon or a spatula is just so much better. Now, chopsticks. If you're comfortable with using them, these are one of the best kitchen tools you can have. They are also my answers to tweezers, which I feel like people don't talk enough about. I use chopsticks constantly while I'm cooking for, grabbing, flipping things, for tasting, for stirring. I feel like the precision you can get with this is kind of like that really nice spot between tweezers and tongs. Anything that requires smaller ingredients too, I feel like chopsticks are just perfect. I'm also, though, somebody who beats their eggs with chopsticks, so love them. But overall, basically, I would say tongs and chopsticks are doing a lot of the same job. So if you're comfortable with using chopsticks, I would encourage you to lean into them for cooking, not just eating. And if you're not, that's exactly what tongs are for. Either way, I've learned that having a precision tool in your corner makes a huge difference. Then we have spatulas, which I feel like sort of the same energy as tongs, right? I feel like a lot of us file it under the baking category. Now, of course, I do use mine for a lot of that, a lot of baking, but I also reach for these for a lot of my cooking. It's great for, stirring pasta sauce so it doesn't stick to the bottom of the pan. I use these a lot to make a quick stir fry. I feel like it's particularly great for anything that involves like a sweet sticky glaze. Also perfect for scrambled eggs, especially soft scramble. And for stirring anything in a pot where you want to make sure to get every little corner. The great thing about it is that it's also just much gentler on pans than a wooden spoon is. It's much more flexible and it just makes the experience a lot more enjoyable. I have a lot of spatulas. I have them in the smaller sizes too, but all of mine are silicone, so they're heat resistant, they're easy to clean. And I honestly feel like once I started using these for cooking and not just baking, these have sort of become my default stirring tool. So if you have one sitting in the drawer right now that you only pull out when you're baking cookies, my challenge for you is to pull them out tonight and try and make dinner with it, and then report back in the comments how that went. Okay, this next one, the immersion blender, is technically an appliance, but my argument here is that it's stored in a drawer. It also replaces a bunch of tools more effectively, so I'm counting it as a tool. Bear with me. So I use this for soups a lot, which is probably the most classic case for immersion blenders, but also a lot of, sauces, salad dressings, desserts. But the thing that actually surprised me the most about this is the whisk attachment that this came with. So I've actually found myself reaching for this whisk attachment even more so than my whisk or my electric hand mixer, and even more so than the blender attachment itself. The thing about it is that it's fast. It also fits into a narrow jar. It's very easy for cleanup too because it's just this one single handheld unit. So overall, it can just achieve more efficiently with way less setup and way less cleanup. Seriously, this whisk attachment is so useful and I feel like it's something that people always forget about. So if you've been on the fence about getting one, like an immersion blender that comes with an attachment, I'd really recommend it. It's one of those things that once you have it in the kitchen, you will find yourself using it constantly. Okay, now we're on to section 3. These are what I call the system tools. These are the things that kind of sound a little more boring on paper, but have somehow quietly changed my kitchen habits and have made the cooking process just a lot more seamless throughout the years. To begin with, we have the kitchen scale, which kind of similar to the spatula. A lot of us associate this with baking or something that's only for people who are very serious about cooking. But I honestly use mine for so much more than baking, and it's really just changed how I approach recipes in general. I will always stand by that using a scale is so much more accurate than using measuring cups or spoons, and you might have seen this already, I also use scales for portioning out proteins as an example. Super helpful for bulk storage prep, as you might have seen in the Costco bulk storage videos. It's also great for portioning pastas, noodles. That's a tip that I learned from Andrew that I've carried on with me. I use it to also make sure I'm not going over or under when I'm scaling a recipe. It just removes the guesswork that comes with a lot of cooking, right? And it just makes you feel confident about moving forwards. As a bonus, if you're a coffee drinker and you're into things like pour overs or ratio-based brewing, you can also use the same scale. Also, the kitchen scale you get doesn't have to be expensive. A very basic sort of digital scale works great. This one is so simple that I almost didn't include it, but these containers, I use them literally every time I cook. So I feel like they deserve a place on this list. It's nothing crazy, right? It's just salt and sugar in their separate containers. Very easy to access, I will say, with like a little spoon inside. And these little guys, they just sit right next to my stovetop. This is just something that I've carried on since like watching my grandpa cook, my mom cook. It generally just makes cooking feel a lot more effortless. It sounds like such a small thing, right? But when you're in the middle of cooking and you want to season something, just being able to reach over and taking a pinch of salt directly from the box just makes it a lot faster and a lot more intuitive. So then you're actually seasoning it properly throughout the process instead of just at the end. I do both salt and sugar because I use sugar for a lot more cooking than people think. It's just great for being able to balance out flavors, but also honestly, right next to my stovetop, I have this whole like condiment setup, which has really streamlined my entire cooking process. Going back to the sugar and salt containers, these are just really easy to refill. They look clean on the counter and they just remove a tiny bit of friction from every cooking session. So repeat it every day. It does actually add up a lot. Last up in this category, we have Super Cubes, which is a bit of a recent find for me. But I have to say it's already earned a permanent spot in my kitchen. I talk about these a lot more in my bulk storage video if you want to check them out in action. But for anyone who doesn't know, these Super Cubes are basically silicone freezing trays and they come in different portion sizes. So this is the half cup size and this one is the 1 cup size. You can freeze things in here and once frozen, pop them out real easily like little bricks that you can then store in bags in the freezer. As somebody who freezes a lot of things in the freezer, this has really introduced me to a whole new world of being able to organize even more efficiently. I love being able to properly portion it. I do also want to say this for people who think that meal prep or bulk storage is only for, you know, big families or big households. It's really not. Even cooking for 1 or 2 people, having portions ready to go in the freezer, it just changes the way you cook throughout the week completely. It just makes your life so much easier. And again, this is a recent find for me, but I have been using it quite literally every week, so highly recommend. Last section, these are the upgrade picks. These are a little more specific, maybe not for everyone, but I have gotten a lot of questions about these 2 things that I genuinely love and use all the time that I think are worth it. First up, these all-clad individual oval baking pans. So ever since the Ratatouille video, almost like 5 years ago, I feel like I've been getting questions about these a lot, which just tells me that it has been catching people's eyes. And I get it because I have been using them constantly ever since. I love these because again, they are individually sized, the portions are already built out for you, and it's just a really nice presentation if you're serving it directly in here. It feels very sturdy. There is actually a good bit of weight to it and it can also go straight into the oven. So I use it for both sweet and savory dishes. Think like individual pasta bakes, roasted veggies, shakshuka, or you know, individual s'mores dip. I just made a lemon mousse that's just sitting there in the fridge right now. Bonus pro, these also fit in my toaster oven. So once again, tiny kitchen win there. I will say though, these are a bit of a splurge, but it is made truly from really good material. It has served me really well over the past 6 years. Just maybe not as shiny, but there is hardly a dent to it. So I feel like if you cook and bake regularly and you want something that looks beautiful on the table, but is also just versatile in the kitchen, these are 100% worth it. Last but not least, we have this pepper grinder. And I'm gonna be very specific with this one because I think it matters. This is the Pepper Cannon by Man Kitchen, and it is not cheap. I'm just gonna say that up front. But I also wanna make a case for why I think this is worth it, because I really think that it has outperformed every other grinder I've used. So this kitchen tool was actually first introduced to me by my chef friend Eric, who liked this so much that he actually gifted me this for one of my birthdays. And the thing that makes the biggest difference is actually the output of this grinder. So most pepper grinders give you this like sad little trickle of pepper. This Pepper Cannon grinds a lot and fast. Like you actually get a very satisfying amount of pepper with very little effort. If you're someone who cares about grind consistency, this one is also very precise. You can do it as fine or as coarse you want it to. But for me personally, I just love how much fresh black pepper it can give me with, again, just a couple turns. Yes, this is a bit of a splurge, but I feel like it fits into the theme of this video, which is very much about buying it once and never having to think about it again. 7 years now and possibly forever. And there it is, all 11 of the kitchen tools that I have basically lived and breathed with these past couple of years. Honestly, just putting this list together made me realize just how much I rely on all of the tools I mentioned today. I'm gonna go ahead and link everything in the description box below. But I am also curious, do you have a kitchen tool that you feel like has changed the way you cook? Or, you know, is something that you didn't expect to love as much as you do now? Let me know in the comments. As always, if you enjoyed this one, remember to like and subscribe, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.